All right, some 46 minutes after 7. Welcome to my banner. But there's something else that we'll be doing whilst we are on this particular conversation. The Judicial Service, they have called an indefinite strike action. So we're taking a look at what it would feel like, or what it feels like the morning after that strike was called in our courts, where I've got two of my colleagues on the ground. So as and when we do have them, we will tell you what the situation is like on the ground. But right now we want to talk about some electoral matters. You would know that issues have come up recently. The very last of it, that ongoing voter registration exercise for persons who are 18 years and people who have either lost their cards or for some reason have not registered before to do their registration. That exercise has been called off. We've got so many issues to deal with, and I've got Dr. Kwesi Jonah. You know that he is a real voice when it comes to electoral matters in Ghana. He's a political science scientist, and I want to welcome you, sir, to our program.
Thank you very much.
So, can I ask what IPAQ really stands for?
Well, IPAQ is an acronym for Inter-Party Advisory Committee, and there's a history to it. 1992, this country had its first election in the Fourth Republic. We started off with the parliamentary elections in November, and we're supposed to follow up. We started off with the presidential elections in November, and we're supposed to follow up with the parliamentary elections in December. Unfortunately, the major party that lost the election, the New Patriotic Party, the presidential election, boycotted the parliamentary elections that were to be conducted 2 weeks later. And so it brought some dissonance into the system. A very big party that could have posed a major opposition to the government boycotted the parliamentary elections. So we had virtually a one-party parliament. The NDC parliamentarians were, out of the 200 seats in parliament, about 106 something were NDC parliamentarians. And so the nation as a whole started discussions. How do we avoid issues like this in the future? Many changes were undertaken, and one of them was the institution of a small structure called the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. The Inter-Party Advisory Committee was supposed to be a forum between the political parties that contest elections and the Electoral Commission, so that they could together meet and discuss problems associated with the conduct of elections in this country.
Okay.
And the IPAQ was created in 1994, 2 years after the 1992 elections. And since that time, IPAQ, through the leadership of IPAQ, we have gone through a series of reforms that have changed elections in Ghana dramatically.
So that's a very good force and a powerful one at that.
Yes.
But do we recognize them anywhere else? I mean, is it just an association, a grouping?
Actually, that is a problem for very many political parties. It is an informal kind of structure. There is no law establishing IPAQ, and the rules of the game, common understanding between the parties and IPAQ is that IPAQ cannot impose its will on the Electoral Commission. And so since it came into existence, some parties have been saying we need a legal backing for IPAQ, because this issue sometimes behaves as if decisions taken at IPAQ are not binding on them. So we need legal backing.
Okay.
But others have resisted, because the Constitution says that in the performance of its functions, the EC should not be subject to the authority of any other person or institution.
Okay. We'll come back to this issue because I've got follow-up questions, but we want to touch base with our colleagues on the ground.
Sure.
We want to check how the courts are doing this morning after that announcement.
Thank God I don't have a court case.
All right, so my colleague Kwachi Afrenriama is joining me on the phone. We've also got live pictures coming your way on your screen shortly. He's at the Cocoa Affairs Court now. So Kwachi, tell us what you see.
Well, currently, scores of people, as you see, are gathered at the main entrance of the Cocoa Affairs Court. Usually, the court starts sitting around 9 a.m., but you got here about some 20 minutes ago. The indication from the JUSAC members here, mainly the security officials, is that certainly they are not working today. They are not allowing any other person aside their own members, that's members of the judicial service, to enter the premises. As I'm sure you can see on your screen now, you just saw a judge enter the premises in his Toyota Aventus, but no member of the public is being allowed in there. The scores of people here, some of them say that this is the first time today. Some are coming for the date of their hearing. I spoke to a young man a while ago. He says, for example, that there's a case filed against him, and it's a sort of an albatross around his neck. He wants the case heard quickly. The day that the first time he's coming to court in terms of coming for the date of the hearing itself, although on previous occasions he's been here for the other court processes. But from all indications, it seems that may not happen. I've spoken to some other people who say that they've also filed some cases, land disputes and all that. And I spoke to one other gentleman. He was appearing in court today for bail hearing, and that also seems clearly that because of the strike, that may not happen. They will have to wait a while longer. But obviously, one thing is clear: the judges here today, as you saw, and I mentioned earlier, some entering the premises already, will have great difficulty working. Of course, it will be almost nearly impossible to work without the judicial staff or the clerks and all that who will be carrying their books and all that, the interpreters and so on. Without them, the court system certainly cannot function. But the judges themselves can operate in their chambers, but no open court hearing can happen. So in conclusion, really, as is the case at the High Court, at the Supreme Court area as well, which we were first before we came to the Cocoa Affairs Court, which is at the various courts, will certainly ground to a halt. I say will certainly ground to a halt. The court, as I mentioned, will start sitting at around 9. So
but Kwashi, do the people understand what's going on? Do they know that there's a strike action in place?
In fact, when we arrived here, I spoke to a couple of them. Many of them didn't have that clear idea. They haven't even heard about this strike in terms of having a certain being firm as to whether it was happening.
Okay, so we seem to... Hello, Kwachi. We seem to have lost Kwachi on the line, but I guess we'll go back a bit later since the court proceedings really would usually start at 9. We'll see how it goes. But that's the situation with the courts in Accra this morning. Well, because they have not been paid some allowances over a certain period of time. But that's the case. You said you're fortunate you don't have any case in court. All right. So let's get back to, our electoral discussions. This recent either disagreement or displeasure about parties not contacted before the EC opened the registration. Is that supposed to be the normal thing?
No, even though IPAQ is not backed by any legal instrument, it has been the practice that every major decision on the electoral process should be discussed at IPAQ. Under no circumstance can you open either general or limited registration without first of all discussing it at IPAQ. Don't forget that when you do register people to go and vote in elections, it is important for the parties to know who you are registering, how you are registering, and where you are registering. It is very important because they are key stakeholders. In the same way, those of us in civil society organizations, we also want to know what is going on because there are certain situations where people expect us to pronounce whether the registration exercise was conducted in a way that is consistent with the laws of the country. So civil society organizations, political parties must know when registration exercise is going on, where it is taking place, so we can observe. How then do you go and start registration exercise without adequately discussing it with IPAQ? Don't forget that it is not only political parties that attend IPAQ meetings.
Oh, okay. Civil society as well.
We are observers. And so we listen to all the discussions. We do not take part in the discussions, but we listen. If there's an IPAQ meeting this Friday, I will go.
Do you intervene? Do you?
No, you don't.
You just observe.
Yes, we just observe. But so this is the point. Every major decision on the electoral process first is, call an IPAQ meeting, let them discuss it, let them even show you how to go about the process, and so on and so forth.
Would the EC usually listen to IPAQ?
The EC usually listens to suggestions from IPAQ members.
Okay.
So I was very surprised when some parties came out to say that adequate notice was not served, and they in fact did not know that such an exercise was going on.
How about civil service?
We also did not know. But
so you were not observing?
No, we were not observing. Parties were not observing, and this is a big mistake.
But hang on, who objects to somebody not being eligible?
If the parties are not there, nobody can.
Yeah, because I was asking.
Yes,
I was asking myself this yesterday.
If the parties are not there, some registration officer could just register a 13-year-old and nobody there to talk, to raise an objection. So that is the point. First, bring it to IPAQ, discuss it. When is it taking place? Where is it taking place? And so that we can observe the process.
But hasn't this been possible because, like we all accept, there's no legal backing to IPAQ?
It is not so much because of legal backing. There has not been legal backing for IPAQ since it came into existence in 1994. But they have always consulted parties.
So why didn't they do it this time?
Only God knows. Only God knows.
But this is not good.
It is not good at all.
Because of the little history that we've had after the last elections.
Recent developments, all the recent developments since 2013 should inform somebody that this is not the way to go. We had a long presidential election petition hearing, and quite recently the Supreme Court has suspended the district level elections. This should send clear signals to everybody that as far as elections are concerned, we've got to move very cautiously.
Should we still be pushing strongly that Afarajan must go? He's due to.
No, Afarajan is already on leave.
Yeah, but is this good for us?
No, Afarajan is already on leave, and Afarajan cannot be blamed for what has happened.
No, I get it, but I'm saying that that's especially. It was for that reason that I asked you this. In his absence, and this is leave.
Okay.
Things are happening.
Yes.
Do we seriously want him to go for forever?
I want Afarajan to go. I don't want us, as the chairman of the Electoral Commission, he has the same retiring age as appeal court judges. When an appeal court judge reaches the retiring age, you don't want him to stay on. In the same way, when the chairman of the Electoral Commission has reached his retiring age, you don't want him to stay on.
But because I guess what I'm asking
you create a dangerous precedent. It doesn't matter how good.
Are we ready to do without him?
It doesn't matter how good Afarajan may be. If he has retained retiring age, he must go. Because the moment you keep him on 1 year, 2 years, another government would like to keep somebody on one, even if there's no good reason for it. So we don't set that precedent at all.
Okay. All right. Let's quickly go back to the courts. We still want to gauge the mood there, and then we'll do a lot more discussion on this particular issue of the EC and IPAQ and all the political parties. So we go over to the courts now. All right, so apparently we don't have the feed. We'll come back in studio to continue with our conversation. My guest is Dr. Kwesi Jonah. We're talking electoral issues, current electoral issues. This conversation about, and we've had it before, about who takes over from Afarajan. The recent recommendations that you made as a committee to the EC, which, we've had the understanding that they're not obliged to necessarily go according to your recommendations. Was this discussed?
Who succeeds Afarajan?
Yes.
No, we didn't discuss particular candidates who are eligible to succeed him. We just discussed general principles. We just discussed general principles. The Constitution is very clear on what the president should do when the position of the chairman of the Electoral Commission becomes vacant. The Constitution says the president, on the advice of the Council of State, should appoint the next chairman of the. Straightforward.
Is that so clear? Because there's a court case now which is seeking an interpretation of that.
Well, the reason people are seeking interpretation is, what does "on the advice of the Council of State" mean?
Is that clear to you?
It's very clear to me. It's not clear so clear to other people. Some legal luminaries are saying that on the advice of the Council of State means it is the Council of State itself which should set for candidates and advise the president. These are the guys we think are eligible. One of them would be. Now, other people say, no, the president should submit his own list to the Council of State and ask for their advice. So, one interpretation gives a very active role to the Council of State. It is the Council of State who should do the search and advise the president. Advise the president. We think this guy will be a good chairman of the Electoral Commission.
But he takes it or leaves it.
And advice for me is advice. It's not binding.
Okay, but is that a good thing? Do we need something more binding, or just the advice going forward?
Advice is advice. If you have a body that advises the president, let them just give advice. It shouldn't be binding on the president.
So why has this become an issue, really?
It has become an issue for two reasons. One, you know, Afarijan was the deputy chairman of the EC when we conducted the first election under the Fourth Republic. He was the deputy chairman in charge of operations. The chairman at that time was called Justice Josiah Foribuating, and he unfortunately resigned as soon as the NPP complained that the 1992 elections were fraudulent. And so Jerry Rawlings, the president at the time, had a problem. Do I bring another person from outside to come and head the EC, or should I just take one of the people within? And he decided that the deputy in charge of operations, the man in charge of operations, is the one who really conducts the elections, should succeed Justice Ofori-Boateng as a chairman. And so Afarijan from 1993 became the chairman of the Electoral Commission. And he has been chairman for close to 23 years. And one person has led a major state institution for almost 23 years. I mean, you can't have a president now in Ghana sitting there for 23 years. Yeah. So when you have one chairman...
He's more powerful than any presidents we've had.
One person sitting as the chair of the EC for 23 solid years, his name becomes almost synonymous with the institution. And so managing the transition from somebody who has managed the place for 23 years to another new, completely new, is a very...
So this is expected, this all the talk?
Yes. That's so this is very much expected. We have been used to one person as the chairman for 23 solid years, and all of a sudden, I'm not sure that people didn't even know that one day this man will have to go because it's been there so long. So this is one reason there has been so much interest. You are replacing somebody who has been there for so long. But the other reason why people have shown so much interest is, of course, something to do with the recent Supreme Court election petition hearing, presidential election petition hearing, and then the recently suspended district level elections. Now, people think that, look, under normal circumstances, when we conduct district level elections, we have another 2 years before we go in for the presidential and parliamentary elections. This time around, it's not going to happen. We don't even know when we are going to have the district level elections, and it is very likely that barely 1 year after district level elections, we have to go into another major election. So you need somebody who knows the process, somebody who is very solid, somebody whose integrity is beyond question to fit into this kind of situation. There's virtually no time at all. In fact, the new chairman of the EC will have no time to settle down. He will start another election before he settles down, the district level election. So that is why people are showing so much interest in this position.
And that is also bringing something to mind. So should we be looking inside within the EC, because we need somebody who already has that kind of experience conducting elections?
But the people in the EC at the moment have not conducted elections for you have two deputies. You have two deputies. None of the deputies has actually conducted too many elections there because they were appointed only recently. They came into a deputy position only recently. Okay, that is not to say that they will not be good chairs of the EC. But the point I'm making is that, well, they themselves have not had the opportunity to occupy the deputy position for too many years. So let us look at them together with other people who are very familiar with election processes in this country, other people who have been doing election-related work for so long, who are very impartial when it comes to partisan politics, and whose skills in managing organizations, raising funds, and so on and so forth, pretty well known to everybody. Now, right now, to conduct the level elections, we need something like $30 million additional dollars. Where that money is going to come from, I don't know. It is only the Ghana government that will have to cough out. But if I have a very good chairman who has fundraising skills, he could persuade 1, 2, 3, 4 donors to put the money together for us, so that the Ghana government, which is already going through a very difficult program with the IMF, will not also have to find unbudgeted for money to do another level election. Is
this something that Afarijan was doing?
Well, Afarijan was on very good terms with the donors until something happened. The donors adopted a certain attitude that, look, there's something called budgetary support. Budgetary support means that donors should give their money to the Ghana government to put it in the budget instead of administering it themselves. Okay. So the donors decided, now we put all the money we could have given to you into the Ghana government budget. So let the government take the money out of the budget and give to the EC. So
but we know that, you know, that doesn't help us.
It doesn't help us. Yeah. But before, he was on very good, he was getting a lot of support.
So you think we need a good fundraiser?
A very good fundraiser. At least the present circumstances require somebody who is a very good fundraiser. So because the $30 million is not small money. What $30 million can do for the Ghana government budget, you have no idea. So if we get a very good person who can convince various donors to put some money into the electoral basket, wonderful.
Is civil society zeroing in on one particular person? I mean, you should see the person that you're, you know.
No, what surprises me is the fact that civil society has been very silent on who we want.
Well, one name came out of...
Yes, Dr. Emmanuel, the guy I work with very closely at the Institute for
IPAQ, yes.
Democratic Governance, his name did come up. Earlier on in the process, I think Professor Emmanuel Jimabody's name also came up, but he said he wasn't interested and so on and so forth. But the point I'm making is, yes, his name has come up and one NGO has supported him, but generally, civil society organizations in this country have been very, very silent.
What are your expectations? What are you expecting from civil society groupings?
I would have liked to hear something from civil society organizations that have been observing elections for so many years. CDD, CODEO, IDEC, IEA. So because they have been doing election observation, they have been doing different types of election work, election, peace, education, so on and so forth. I expected that they will have a very good idea regarding the kind of person who could fit into the shoes of Dr. Kojo Afarijan. But surprisingly, I mean, you have all.
Well, but today you're telling us a few things. Very, you know, somebody who is good at fundraising. Yes. But what do you think about Dr. Akwete?
Well, I mean,
as EC boss.
Okay, I may not appear to be very objective because I work very closely with him.
That's fine.
And he's a very close friend of mine. We've been friends for more than 30 years. The guy is very good. When it comes to fundraising, between the two major parties, very, very impartial. If MPP is wrong, he will say MPP is wrong. If MPP is right, he will say MPP is right. If NDC is right, no. Very, very impartial. He has been able to raise money from international organizations to bring IDEC. IDEC was a one-room organization. We had just one room as an office at Nyaniba Estate. Today, IDEC has a huge office complex. You know, how did he do it? Just raising money from different sources and so on and so forth. Since 2000, when IDEC came into existence, IDEC is about 15 years old now. IDEC has been observing every single election. IDEC has been doing a lot of peace education. You know, so for me, I mean, I don't want people to think that because I work very closely and we are close friends, I am canvassing for him. But this guy will do a very good job.
So he will make an excellent EC boss.
Chairman of EC. This does not mean that he's the only person. You know, there are very many good people also around, and I would like the Council of State, which is supposed to be advising the President, to look at all of them and be able to make a good choice for the country.
You've had, you know, some of the political parties saying that we should look at academia, for instance, because if you're looking at the elections in Nigeria, where we saw, you know, some professors and so on and so forth.
Strangely, Chairman of INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, have always been university professors themselves. And so for some reason, they have also used professors as returning officers, and they've used fellow academics from different universities in Nigeria to play certain roles, and it has worked very, very well for them. I mean, it has worked in Nigeria. I cannot say that because of that it will work also very well in Ghana. It could pretty well be that Ghanaian academics are divided along partisan lines. Therefore, if you make use of them, but it has worked very, very, very well.
But you don't think that could work here, do you?
It could.
Okay.
It could work.
Let's get back to the register.
Yeah.
What should we do? Because they've registered a couple of people already. What should we do with that list now?
All you have to do is to cancel the registration that you have already done. It's not a problem.
Is it easy to identify that and cancel it?
Oh, yes. You have just recently registered people. This thing has not been going on for months. It's just recently. It's just barely 1 week. So everybody, and the process should be so transparent, all the parties should know that we are deleting the names for all those people who you have wrongly registered in recent days.
Okay. So a call-off of the exercise doesn't mean the EC is accepting that it did something wrong,
of
and
course,
so what it had registered now would be illegal.
This is already an admission on the part of the EC that it hasn't done the quite right thing. It is not politically correct to go about a limited registration exercise when your key stakeholders are not aware. Don't forget, you are writing people to do what? To go and vote for parties and candidates. To vote. So if I'm a political party and I know that a registration exercise is going on, those of my members who have reached voting age, who are not aware the process is going on, I will educate them. Please, a limited registration exercise is going on. If you are 18, if you are not able to take advantage of the last registration, this is the time to go. But if I am not aware, how do I do this kind of thing? I must observe the process to ensure that it is transparent. Only the right people, eligible people, are being registered. If I'm not aware, how can I do that?
So the call-off would cost us some money as well.
Well, money matters.
But I have an issue as a Ghanaian.
It means whatever money that we have already wasted,
that's waste.
This is why it's gone down the gutter. Gone down the drain.
Didn't we learn any lesson from the district assembly elections that was called off?
We lost so much money there. We have to raise another $30 million. This one too, we've lost some money there. Something must happen at the EC. You need a new person who can put things right. You need a new person who can learn the lessons that they should have learned from some of the incidents that have happened since 2013. It seems they're not learning as fast as we expected them to.
Who can intervene, really?
Well, for me, the answer is simple. Just appoint a new chairman very quickly and let him clean up the place.
I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's always a pleasure hosting him, and we will do it again. I promise you. Dr. Kwesi Jonah, my guest this morning. We've been having an EC, an electoral process conversation, really, and we hope that you've learned all the lessons you can out of this one. We'll go back to the courts to gauge the mood there, as the Judicial Service has called an indefinite strike action because some allowances have not been paid to them. Can you begin to imagine if you had a court case today or in the coming days and you don't know what's happening? Apparently, people didn't know that there was a strike action and they made themselves available. We'll see how that goes, but we'll be gauging the mood before 9. But Roland Walker has got talk that comes up right after this.